In 2020, my siblings and I combined our stimulus checks and bought a car.
Yeah, but that's just the tip of the iceberg.
The Treppers own, manage, and maintain 20 plus doors. Given the game by our dad, he taught us generational knowledge creates generational wealth.
Learn with us the do's and don'ts of real estate and property management.
You've been to the Bando. Now, let us introduce you to the Trep.
Welcome to season 2 of Trep Out the Bando.
The Griffiths need more storage, man. So I'm gonna be turning this space into storage space. And this is the only space that is relatively wide open enough. I can actually stand straight up in this little peak formation right here between these rafters. And so if you look the opposite direction, you can see that the rest of the attic is just taken up with primarily the HVAC system. So this is the only place that we can use. I have a few things I need to do up here. I need to get rid of this insulation. I need to get rid of this crazy bird's nest. I've already started. You can see how much pine straw is already in this bag. So this was a pretty big bird's nest. You can see literally at least 1, 2, 3, 4 areas where they were making their little bowls of nests. This is the exhaust vent to the bathroom. It is full of straw. We're gonna get started. I actually have a rake up here with me and a bucket, trash bag, gloves. I need to go get a mask because my nose is already running and my throat is getting itchy. When we moved into this house 6 months ago, this bird's nest was already here. The previous owner obviously did not do anything about it. I imagine there would be a lot of mornings hearing birds chirping and scratching around up here. But this full skeleton makes me cringe at the thought of smelling this thing decomposing and not being able to find the source of the stench. The footage doesn't do the scale of this nest any justice. It was complex. I'm basically demoing a bird's quadruplex. Some of y'all like and subscribe buttons look a lot like this nest, old, stinky, and unused. I think you should change that. Clear some space and don't forget to hit the notification bell. The birds pretty much filled this entire duct with straw and other trash, fabrics, etc. It was full all the way near the fan. Going through this attic, I found a lot of spare wood, OSB, and metal hidden under the blown-in insulation. Some of this is going to come in handy later. The toughest part of a project like this is having to walk on the ceiling joists the entire time. One wrong step, and I fall through the ceiling. Now that I've removed all of the insulation, I can see where all my penetrations are. I can see all of the wiring that comes up through the walls, vents. This is the condensation from the HVAC unit that runs out and drains. These are my supply lines, but they're not considered a penetration. And then this right here is like a drainage air vent. So it does run on top of my ceiling joists, but I do believe that I'm going to be able to lift it up enough to slide the OSB subfloor under it. And then we can see I have the exhaust fan box and the exhaust duct that used to run outside. So I'm gonna have to rerun that and cut holes for that type of penetration. We're gonna go blocking, measured and installed. Then we're gonna go insulation, which I bought the wrong dimensions. So I may just take that back and get the right one. Certain little things that I think will be an issue if I'm trying to get the plywood flush is gonna be these type of little, I forget what they're called, but I'm gonna cut them so that they're not protruding a whole lot. Cut them back, and then we'll be installing some subfloor. Just as an example of what I'm doing when it comes to pulling measurements and establishing blocking. So I'm running into a situation where this ceiling joist and this area here, this you can tell is a 2x6. These are regular 2x4s. I believe that the elevation between this one and that is going to be different. So I'm going to establish a new set of blocking running at the same elevation as this ceiling joist. That way, the plywood can sit flush. Otherwise, it would be higher here than here. And another situation where I'm establishing blocking is back here on this edge. I want the plywood to come in right along here. I don't want to have to notch it in to sit on this lip up here. I'd rather it just terminate flush to this edge. So I'm going to add another piece of blocking that's going to sit directly on top of this 2x4. I took my measurements, I labeled it. I'm going to reroute this wire that runs on top of the ceiling joists. So I'm going to just drill a couple of holes through these 2 studs and then have it terminate here. This little tool right here I enjoy using because it will let me know if a wire is currently hot, meaning it is conducting electricity and I am at risk of shock, or if it actually is not carrying a load right now. I'm gonna have to reroute this wire to pass in from the side. I'm probably gonna cut this a little more flush so that it does not stick above this ceiling joist. And I'm gonna reroute this wire. And I'm also going to redo this exhaust duct and change it from this clear to an aluminum. So I'm gonna have to take the tape off of this. That looks like feces or something. I don't know, it really looks like poop, to be honest. I did have an infestation of birds up here, and they did make their way into this exhaust duct. Definitely boo-boo. That's crazy. Okay guys, so I'm back. I went up there, I pulled the wire out, ran it through the 2 holes that I poked, and rerouted it back through here. I also made sure to run the wire through the side port as opposed to the one that was on the top. When I use wire nuts, I always pre-twist the wires in the same direction that I'm going to have to turn the wire nut so that I'm not unraveling the 2 wires as I mend them together. And then I always tug to make sure they're snug. I'm gonna clean this off before I put it back. I made a list of cuts before I came down to the garage, so I'm just cutting the lengths required to complete the blocking for a few areas. This OSB will be sandwiched between 2 studs so that the boards will have a flush area to rest near the wall's edge. Okay, so I got my blocking in everywhere that it needs to be. This lip right here, I'm gonna have to sandwich the board you see in the front, and the board you see in the back will be the buns, and in the middle is gonna be a 1/2 inch OSB. So I'm just gonna take this OSB that I found up here and sandwich it like you would like a header or something, so that it can be 3.5 inch dimension to match the ceiling joists. I'm headed out of the attic to rip this plywood and probably rip my first pieces of subfloor as well. Only thing I need to do before I insulate the floor is take this duct and merely attach it to the exhaust fan. I'll cut the subfloor around it and route it to the exhaust vent. Let me see, Noop. Whoa. Hey, this your first time in the attic, Nuki. Look who's home. Good girl.
Come on, big girl. Come on.
I had to expand it out more so that it could be more malleable, and this zip tie could have a better chance of creating tension. Much better for now. Laying this insulation was the first step that made me feel like I was making progress. I could imagine how open the soon-to-be floor would be. Up to this point, I had been using a small piece of OSB to straddle the ceiling joist to make it slightly more comfortable standing and sitting up here. The main things I'm gonna have to cut around is this vent and that exhaust duct. It's finally time to cut and place the subfloor. I'm only cutting it because it will be more manageable and maneuverable in smaller pieces. This is 3/4 inch subfloor, so it's very heavy when it's in 4x8 foot sheets. And because I need to lift it above my head, wiggle it through the access door, and slide it under that PVC drain pipe vent, it will be smarter to cut it into pieces. Look who done pulled up on me. Whoa, what was that? Baby Trep, I need your help, man.
I can't. I got a headache.
Man, what? You got a headache?
My eyes watering.
So look.
The pollen getting to me. I can't breathe.
Cap.
What happened?
Cap.
Man, I ain't gonna mess with you today. I got stuff to do.
I'm going to the. I gotta put some boards in the attic.
What I got to do?
Wow.
All right. What do you need me to do?
I'm cutting boards. I need help carrying them up.
All right.
I'm taking them all the way to the attic.
I got you. I'm here to be of service.
Y'all, do y'all believe her? We don't see, man. Yeah, Baby Trep dipped. I'm gonna let her slide this time because she's always pulling double duty, working, trepping, studying, coaching, something. She was just popping in to say what's up to her broski and transition to the next thing on the agenda. Okay, so I've decided to save this hole. I'm just gonna cut it wider, but I'm planning on bringing the saw and everything up here, and I'm gonna just cut in place. I did screw this down with 2 screws just to secure it while I walk on it. It feels so much better having a solid surface to walk on without having to calculate literally every step. I just pulled measurements for this remaining piece that's gonna run here to here. And I'm deciding to make it 26 inches wide, primarily for clearance on that far edge for this pipe. The closer it gets to the junction, the harder it is to raise up and slide a piece of 3/4 inch subfloor under it. So to give it the opportunity to clear, I'm gonna make it 26 inches. I was gonna do 24, but based on the offcut of this main stretch, it's gonna leave just the perfect dimension to finish this portion off. And so to make myself only have to cut it once and get 2 usable pieces, I'm gonna stretch this dimension to 26, which will leave me 22 inches wide worth of board, and that will span this area perfectly. So, and I'm also gonna have to cut off a lip of this plywood so that the board that stretches this direction is wide enough to has something to attach to. I put no screws here because I knew I was going to do that. So I'm just going to follow the pattern and give 1 full stud. I'm going to give 1 full stud to the new board and 1 full stud to the existing. So I've got a boatload of cuts to do. I also took measurements to cut around this vent. So I'm going to do all of that downstairs now. And when I come back up, I should have a bunch of boards that's pretty much ready to just be positioned and screwed down. And I'm also going to bring the saw.
The overall walkable space is about 65 square feet. So it's a 10-foot by 6.5-foot space. It felt really good. Getting this OSB down, it made the space walkable and much more comfortable. I think our dog wanted to come and enjoy her dad's hard work too. I split this project across multiple days, and I think I forgot to film a few steps, but after the floor, I immediately moved to installing my first shelf that would run the majority of the back wall. I fastened a horizontal 2x4 to the rafters and at the same elevation as the 2x4 that was already on the wall. Then I started cutting OSB to the corresponding width to span the gap.
I cut the OSB to 21.5. I knew that these rafters were set different distances from this wall. So I just decided to run an initial board 2x4 across all of them. And I will account for the varying gaps. You can see a gap between the plywood and the rafter. And it actually decreases a little here. And then here it's decreases even more. But regardless, once this board is fully attached, right now I'm just roughing things in. They're attached enough to at least provide support for this initial piece of OSB that I ran across. This OSB is 8 feet long, and I'm going to continue it to the end of this existing bracing that was already here in the house. And it's going to attach to this rafter as well, with a matching board like this. So I leveled it off based on this board. I leveled this one and attached it. Scribed a few lines. So I have scribed lines on the other side of this board and scribed lines on the other side of that board, so I know where level is. I've already gone downstairs and cut my remaining length that's required to be placed here. matching this. And once I have that, I was actually lucky enough to have that piece of plywood that I found up here. After I ripped it once, this remaining piece is actually a perfect dimension to go and stretch across the two boards. So that's what I'm about to do now. Attach my remaining 2x4 and throw up this last piece of OSB. And from there, I'm going to assess my progress and continue to make adjustments as necessary. Now that that's done, I'm going to take both of my pieces of OSB and I'm going to only attach the back edge to the support 2x4 that's under it, only on this back edge along the wall. That'll start to give me some fixed numbers and distances to make my adjustments with. And it'll also just keep anything from falling because neither of these OSBs are attached at all. So I do want to at least put at least 2 screws in each for the moment to hold it in place. And so while I continue to fidget around and push and pull on these rafters and screw off other areas, it'll be less likely to fall or slide or just, create any complications. So, and then I'm going to attach my spliced 2x4 area because again, this one is also free and floating right now. This was just a rough end. This may conclude the overall attic conversion for now. It was very basic. I added the floor and I added one long shelf in the back. And this should suffice for now. We're just moving into this home, so we don't need a lot. But in the future, now that this is here, what I would likely do is insert shelving across each of these rafter bays that we have here. So across each rafter bay on each side, I would essentially do a similar process to the process that I have done for this. So that will come as we grow into the home. But for now, I'm satisfied. I'm going to store things, of course, on the top shelf and on the floor for now. If and when this floor gets crowded, we'll then expand into the rafter bays. This blocking was the quickest solution to providing good support to the shelf boards. The rafters themselves were not spaced equal distance from the wall, which resulted in about 1.5 inches difference between rafters on the left side of the floor versus the right side. Okay, so the bulk of this situation has been taken care of for now. Of course, I'm going to have to attach the exhaust duct. I bought some collar ties, so I'm going to use the collar ties to actually attach both ends of that exhaust duct hose. Other than that, I'm very satisfied. This is extremely sturdy, so we're going to give it a quick test. I don't know if you can see my feet, but I will be lifting my feet off the ground just to show that it can support all 185 pounds of me. Let's see if I can actually get up here. Check that out. Super, super sturdy. I'm not worried. It's not moving. It's not shaking. It's not doing anything. It feels just as sturdy as a floor would. So this thing can support well over 185 pounds clearly. So I think we did good. We did good. A couple of months later, and this is what we've got. It has served its purpose exactly as I expected it to. And as you all can see, we started utilizing that long shelf, right? The shelf has been holding up, and as I expected, I did start putting stuff on the floor. This is the max that's been up here so far, and everything is still pretty accessible. I may eventually go into the rafter bays, like I said, but right now is not the time. And I still have not attached this duct. The reason being, I don't own a ladder large enough to address the issue on the other side of that exhaust vent, which is the amount of access birds have to getting in here. There is no grid on the other side of this wall, so that penetration where the vent is going to connect to is still wide open. So I don't want to have a channel for birds to re-establish what they did before. So until I get access to a ladder that will allow me to block birds from entering through that vent, I'm a little apprehensive about connecting the vent hose